Sorry, this is going to be in English because my German is very, very bad. But good morning, all. I'm Rob. I'm a head of Insight at the Financial Times. And today I'll be taking you through some thought leadership research, which we ran last year with the IPA, which is the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising. It's called Bridging the Trust Gap, and it's all about the importance of trust in business. We look at the building blocks of trust across different industries, and ultimately how you can plan media to help advertisers to build trust. So hopefully it's of interest for you. Just to kick off with why we did the research. So I think in this day and age, trust is more important than ever. You know, we've got this backdrop of misinformation, geopolitical uncertainty, especially in recent weeks, and of course the rise of AI. We wanted to gauge just how key trust is for businesses to thrive. It's often a metric it's taken for granted. We've got some data to show how it really affects a company's profitability and its bottom line. And in terms of what we look at today, so there's 4 sections to the talk. So bottom left, we look at the importance of trust. We look at the building blocks of trust and the benefits of trust from both an organizational and a customer point of view. We look at trust across different sectors, and as I mentioned, trust around AI. And vitally, the role that media helps in shaping trust for brands. Just a piece of bookkeeping in terms of the researcher. So I'm a researcher, so we always have this slide. But this piece of research was done in Q4 2024. So it's a few months old now, but nonetheless still relevant for where we are today. Amongst FT readers, so it's a proxy for business decision makers. And we collected 757 responses globally. So from the UK, continental Europe, the Americas, Middle East, and APAC. A third of the sample were C-suites, so that's your CFOs, CEOs, and that's very much reflective of the FT audience at large. And they came from various industry sectors, so technology, professional services, and banking and finance. So just to set the scene with the first section, so this is to help us understand just how important trust is for businesses and organizations. Kicking off the findings, one of the first things that we asked was, do you think the importance of trust in organizations has changed in the last 5 years? And the BDMs that we interviewed were pretty confident it had. 64% there in the blue, almost 2/3, agreed trust in companies is much more important nowadays. 31% said there had been no change in the importance of trust. Maybe it's just as important as it's always been. But very few, you've only got 6% there who are saying that trust is a less important metric than it was 5 years ago. So already we're highlighting in the research just how important it is for companies to take note of trust and build trust with their customers. I think it's something that we already knew, but nonetheless proved here that it's vital for company success. The natural follow-up to this was asking why. So why is trust in companies more important nowadays? And the BDMs we interviewed gave us several different reasons, which you can see here. The top reason was just that companies have more access to our personal information than ever before. So if you think about it, you know, when we log onto websites, when we provide our account information, we need to be confident that that information that we give, those companies are going to be responsible with that information. And that comes through in the research. Secondly, we see there's a reduction in human interaction with organizations. Obviously, it may save money to kind of, shift your operations online, you gain efficiencies, but it does seem to hinder the ability for companies to build trust and a trusted relationship with their customers. So I think for some industries, moving to that digital space seems to be causing some issues. There are many other reasons cited here as well, but on the right-hand side, over here, you can see some nice verbatim from our audience. So they're saying things like, it's easier for companies to exist digitally without being able to verify their background and ethics. And at the bottom there, institutional trust has eroded away to the point that people are asking different questions than they did in the past. So clearly we're getting this sense, there's this feeling that the landscape has changed and there's more of a focus on trust now. This is just another illustration of why trust is so important. And this is when we look at the share price of the world's most trusted brands. So this is the Trust 200 index. It's a US equity stock index, which is in the green line at the top there. It's compiled by the research group Trust Across America. And I think it just nicely highlights that trustworthy companies outperform less trustworthy ones financially. And so again, it's just to highlight another reason why trust is important. Trusted companies, they're more likely to grow, and they carry a lower long-term risk to potential investors, and in this example, outperform the S&P 500. And the final slide in this section, so indeed establishing that trust is so important, it was interesting to see in the study that when we talked about measurement, less than half of the respondents say that they're actually measuring their trust levels as in their companies. 49% say that they are measuring their trust levels. In the middle, 37% said they aren't measuring their trust levels, and 30% weren't sure. So there's an interesting disconnect arising here. You know, we've seen in the first few slides how important trust is. They've told us the reasons why, but very few companies are actually measuring trust. So I think going forward, that's clearly something that needs addressing, given how important trust seems to be. So that was section 1. In section 2, we look at the building blocks of trust. So how can we actually build trust? How is it created? And what should companies be doing? So we asked in the research how important several factors were in establishing trust between customers and organizations. You can see the top 6 factors here which came out. There was a longer tail than this, but we're just showing the top 6. And there's nothing kind of groundbreaking in some of these, but the number 1 was just being reliable. So simply delivering on your promises as a company goes really far. Being consistent, so that's obviously, you know, being reliable and doing that consistently over time. Those 2 things hand in hand are obviously going to really help to build trust. Competent human interaction, so it could be face-to-face or video calls, but certainly building rapport in that human way. And importantly, in this day and age, data security. So I think, you know, data breaches, these are a quick way to kind of lose trust. And obviously, the converse is true. Companies who can protect customer data are held in higher esteem. Companies get lots of benefits when they are trusted. We already saw, obviously, trusted companies, they have a higher share price and seem to be more profitable. But they gain lots of other things. So at the top there, they gain customer loyalty. They create a stronger brand. And they can attract and retain employee talent, which gives them a competitive edge over their peers. So there's lots and lots of benefits to companies when they're more trusted. So that's the benefits to the company, sorry. On the next slide, we look at the benefits to the customer. So here we see that customers can feel more confident using trusted companies again on repeat. You know, if you use a vendor, you can kind of go with that same vendor again. It allows you to be more agile, you can make quicker decisions, and you can quickly move on to the next task. And also there's an increased potential for collaboration, to work with businesses, to share learnings, and to discover new ideas. And again, just some verbatim here from our readers to bring this to life. So for example, they're saying things like trust is reducing friction and time and costs, which is from a male in the education sector. We see customers benefit by having more energy and time when they trust an organization, again from a male in the healthcare sector. And then it leads to symbiotic working to help to co-produce products and services to lead to a better outcome to both parties. You know, we've certainly worked with tech vendors at the FT where we've built trusted relationships, and we've asked for certain things from the product. They've kind of delivered on that, and that's helped their business grow. And at the same time, our business has grown. And that kind of collaboration is really built on trust and helps both businesses for the better. Moving on to the next section, we look at trust levels across different industry sectors. And of course, on the research, we asked some questions about AI, given its rise in recent years. So we asked FT readers here to rate the trust levels they had across several different industries. So this was a prompted list, and we've got many different industries here. This is just looking at the highest level of trust. And you can see we've got business news, food, cybersecurity, all the way over to governments, property agents, and tabloid news. So we confirmed on the study that nobody likes property agents. So that's the joke for today, but maybe it didn't land. But we've got several other industries here. Tabloid news, governments, they're much less likely to get the high trust score. Whereas if you look at, on the left-hand side, business news, food, cybersecurity, they were more trusted industries in the study. People have more confidence in those industry sectors to deliver on their promises. There's quite a bit going on this next slide, but what we did here was we took those previous slide scores And we layered on scores from a second question, which is actually how important is trust when engaging or selecting organizations within those industries. So just to walk you through what we've done here. So in the light blue, you can see the level of trust in the industry, which was the same as the previous slide. And then the dark blue is how important is trust in that industry for that industry to function. And then the difference, or the gap, is what we're calling the trust gap, which you can see here. Actually, there are significant trust gaps across all industries. But some are doing better than others. You know, if you look at retail here, if you look at business news, they've got a bit of a smaller trust gap, but could obviously still improve. But when you look at some other areas, finance, governments, insurance, they've got really, really big trust gaps. The level of trust to that sector is high, yet the levels of trust in the sector are quite low. So the way we position this, you know, if we are working or communicating in those sectors, I'd certainly be looking to build those trust levels and try and close that gap further. As mentioned on the study, we also asked about AI specifically. So what we did here was we asked FT readers whether they trusted humans more or AI more across all these different tasks. So you can see the blue line is trusting humans more, and the orange line is to trust AI more. And the first thing that stands out is that the blue line is above the orange line across all tasks. So as it stands, it seems that humans are more trusted versus AI across all these scenarios. But you can see that there's some close gaps. So to market a product or to create effective social media posts, you could potentially see how in the future AI might be, you know, trusted enough to do some of these tasks. But clearly when it comes to some more complicated things, at least in the eyes of our respondents, to write or solve legal issues or to produce an investigative article for a newspaper, it doesn't seem like AI is as trusted to do these yet. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves over time. Maybe we're going to see some overlaps between the orange line and blue line in the future. Following on from this, we did ask a range of questions on the study as well about AI, and these scores are just some highlights. But it shows companies need to be cautious, really, in their deployment of AI. For example, bottom left there, you can see that 92% of the sample agreed if a company were to misuse AI, it would have profound effects on their level of trust with that company. And that currently 55% disagree. They don't trust AI-generated content. So again, I think it's going to be interesting to see how companies build trust in a world where AI usage is increasing. It's clearly here to stay. But our research does show there's some trepidation at the moment on its usage. And the final section today is just looking at how media can play a role in helping to build trust, given the areas that we've discussed so far today. Firstly, we asked respondents which media channels they see as the most trusted. At the top there, you can see international news brands were the most trusted platform, followed by national newspapers, radio, and major TV channels. Social media and influencers were at the bottom there. So this is looking at those that got the highest level of trust scores. And just on that, the research obviously isn't designed to kind of knock social, but clearly social demands a lot of eyeballs in the advertising world. But practices in recent times, such as removing fact-checking or allowing users to upload malicious content, clearly does affect the level of trust that's perceived to be in those environments. And that's coming through in the research. We also looked at specific media brands and which were the most trusted. We did have a longer list than this on the study. But what came out generally was that the international news publishers were seen as the most trusted. Of course, this is an FT study. The FT scores particularly highly. But also, this is just looking at the top highest score. So that 69% does grow to 93% when we look at the top two box scores. So we're not saying that there's a whole host of FT readers who don't trust the FT. And we're only showing the top 7 titles here. There was a much longer list. But you can see it's the FT, The Economist, Bloomberg. Those international titles are really coming through as trusted environments and well regarded when it comes to trust. Sticking with the media theme, we introduced this concept of gatekeeper brands on the study as well. And we asked our readers, if an advertiser wanted to build trust, how important are gatekeeper brands to the media plan? So we defined a gatekeeper brand as those who control 100% of the content on their platform. So everything is signed off by editorial teams. It's notwithstanding user comments, so they're obviously still included. But FT readers once again agreed that when it comes to building trust, gatekeeper brands or publishers should be part of that media plan. You can see in the blue, overwhelmingly the 59% agree they're an important element. And what we could also do in the data was look at that by different regions. So just to add to this, the region that believed this the most was in Europe, which hopefully should be relevant for the audience here today. Gatekeeper media brands are also more trusted to implement generative AI as part of their businesses. So what we did here was we looked at those publications that were net trusted or distrusted to use generative AI as part of their business. So you can see the blue scores are for net trust and the orange are for net distrust. Once again, we're seeing those established gatekeeper brands on the left-hand side. You can see international titles there like the FT, The Economist, BBC News, Bloomberg. Whereas on the right-hand side, some of those social media platforms are suffering from distrust when it comes to AI. They're perhaps perceived to be, allowing some non-authentic content on their platforms, and it seems to be hindering trust levels in their perception that they would use generative AI responsibly. And finally, on this slide, you can see the benefits to advertisers, so those who align with trusted media brands, and that's what we say we call the halo effect. So we asked, how would your views of a company change if they had advertised and aligned with a trusted media brand? And in our research, 60% in the orange agreed that an advertiser would be viewed as more trustworthy when taking that approach. And it's really those last few slides I think you can take away today to give us a clear media strategy to help build trust. So if an advertiser uses a reliable, trusted publisher who controls 100% of the content, so is a gatekeeper brand, then the advertiser, by proxy, inherits some of that trust and is seen as more trusted as a result. And another thing to note here, so this was true of all ages in the data for the research. So even the younger cohort for the research agreed that aligning with trusted media does indeed help improve your trust credentials. So that was some highlights from our research, Bridging the Trust Gap. I hope you found it interesting. As mentioned, we do have a full white paper of this research. It was co-written with the IPA, and it goes into more detail. We bring in desk research, other sources, so it's really comprehensive. I do encourage you to check it out. You can use the QR code on screen to access this, or simply visit the link. So I'll just leave it up there for 5 seconds or so. But yes, thank you again once for listening. Just before we go, I did want to introduce a couple of my colleagues who are here over the next couple of days at DDryCon. So we have Armin and Charlie. If you do want to discuss, how the FT, for example, might help you to build trust, as well as reach a high net worth affluent audience, then do reach out to us if you see us at some of the sessions later. But that's it from me. So thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was amazing. We have some questions. We have some time.
Okay.
I just ask, you answer, right?
Yep. Sounds
good. Let's go. Did you take cultural differences into account while validating trust definitions and ratings throughout people from across the world? And if so, how?
Did we take in cultural differences?
Yes.
So the research was very much global. We use our FT Reader panel to run the research. And we did look at some regional differences. We looked at some age differences as well. Actually, the paper that you can access through the QR code goes into some of those differences in more detail. We highlighted a couple. So, for example, the younger cohort really agreed that putting your ads in trusted environments really helps to build trust, as well as some of those regional differences around gatekeeper brands. For example, that gatekeeper brands are a really vital piece of the media plan, especially in Europe. So there are some cultural differences, but it was more of a natural fallout from our audience rather than kind of as we set up the research.
No, thank you. Next question. How would you rate the value of your results for usage in media planning? Your participations were mostly high-earned C-levels. That does not represent society.
Yeah, so a third of the audience was C-suite. So we've got 2/3 that aren't. In terms of representation, I think what comes out in the research, even if you remove those C-suites, is that trusted environments do give a rub-off effect to advertisers, and by proxy, they inherit some of that trust. And vice versa, we saw a lot of distrust in some platforms as well. Some of the social media channels that seem to be perceived, at least amongst our audiences, to be distrusted to use Gen AI responsibly as part of their business. So I do think there is something in trusted environments give off that rub-off effect to advertisers. So I'd encourage, if you did want to build trust, to kind of seek those out to build trust for your brand.
Thank you. Any further questions here in the room? So I have a last question.
Amazing.
We're here at the Advertisers Day. So what can advertising or marketing do to help brands or to support brands to build trust?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone saw, but when we looked at the different industry sectors, advertising was a sector that had a trust gap as well. And the way that we position this at the FT is, there's things you can do. So at the FT, we signed up to an advertising charter. We work with the ASA to ensure that any ads we put out, their claims are substantiated. We're not doing things like greenwashing when we're talking about sustainability. So I think there's lots of things you can do to help kind of prove that you're being reliable, consistent, using some of those building blocks to help build trust.
All right, okay. And can the advertising from a company support or help build trust?
Yeah, exactly. It's always a partnership. So whenever we work with advertisers at the FT, we always talk about it as a partnership. So I think companies very much play a part in building that trust as well as publishers.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah.